Trump signed an executive order increasing tariff on Canada from 25% to 35%.
But we have made a few deals today that are excellent deals for the country. You know, we're taking in literally trillions of dollars for the country.
This morning, the trade war is now impacting tomatoes. A new policy kicks in today, making way for a 21% price hike on tomato imports.
The world watched Donald Trump thunder about America first, but north of the border, something far more strategic was unfolding. While Washington grabbed headlines with fiery speeches and trade battles, Canada was methodically reshaping the very foundation of global commerce. It wasn't loud, it wasn't chaotic. It was calculated. What many dismissed as a smaller neighbor was, in truth, turning Trump's war into an opening for its own rise. And behind this transformation stood a figure unlike the leaders most people expect. A man whose weapons weren't rallies or slogans, but financial strategy, global influence, and cold precision. The result would tilt the balance of power in ways few could have predicted. How did Canada pull this off? And who was the mastermind behind all? Let's break it down. Days ago, an announcement shook the foundations of Wall Street. Walmart, the largest retailer in the United States, admitted something that left investors and families across the nation unsettled. Prices are rising, and not because of inflationary trends or supply chain issues alone, but because of tariffs directly tied to Donald Trump's trade policies. Shoppers will now pay more for everyday goods, from Coca-Cola cans to cereal boxes, even down to the tomatoes that line grocery store shelves. At the same time, Canada, operating with quiet precision, secured a $12 billion trade deal with Asian markets. These were markets the United States once counted as its own. The contrast could not be more dramatic. In the very week Trump doubled aluminum tariffs to 50%, American households braced for higher costs, while Canada gained a fresh source of revenue. This is no longer a simple dispute over trade. It is the story of how one leader's decision unleashed a transformation that threatens to reverse decades of American dominance and elevate Canada to a position Washington never expected to see. The damage is visible on the ground. In Florida, California, and Texas, millions of pounds of tomatoes sit untouched in storage facilities. They are not spoiled, they are not the result of floods or droughts. They are rotting because no one is buying them. For families who have grown food for generations, the pain is crushing. Chad Smith, a farmer in Florida whose family has worked the land for 3 generations, explained it in words that capture the scale of the disaster. The price paid for tomatoes is no longer enough to even cover the cost of picking them. His farm, like many others, cannot afford to keep going. Meanwhile, north of the border, Canadian greenhouses hum with activity. Workers put in triple shifts, producing flawless tomatoes destined for Tokyo, Dubai, and London. These are not new buyers. They are the same international markets that for decades relied on American farms. But the balance has shifted. While American produce decays in silence, Canadian agriculture is thriving, seizing contracts that once defined the strength of the US food industry. In a single season, the tables turned. The ripple effects extend far beyond agriculture. Manufacturing, once the pride of American resilience, now feels like a shadow of its former self. One of the clearest examples comes from Coca-Cola. The company's leadership spoke out publicly, describing Trump's aluminum tariffs as unsustainable. With costs pushed to unprecedented levels, Coca-Cola even considered abandoning its iconic aluminum cans in favor of plastic bottles. This move collides with decades of efforts by environmental groups to move away from plastics, but the decision speaks volumes about the desperation inside boardrooms across the country. Canada, however, is not scrambling. It is profiting. Nearly half of America's aluminum comes from Canadian suppliers. 44% to be exact. Trump's tariffs, intended to spark a manufacturing revival at home, created the opposite effect. Instead of forcing companies to buy American, the tariffs entrenched Canada's dominance. The uncomfortable truth in Washington is that the United States no longer has the smelting capacity to supply its own industries. Years ago, facilities shut down because of their high operating costs and energy demands. Even if every smelter reopened tomorrow, the country would still fall short of its needs. That leaves American companies no choice but to keep keep buying Canadian aluminum, only now at prices inflated by tariffs. Canada did not face punishment. Canada inherited a monopoly. Behind this seismic shift stands a figure whose name is not shouted from podiums, but spoken with respect in financial circles. Mark Carney, the only person in history to lead two G7 central banks, has built a reputation as one of the most capable economic strategists of his time. Steered Canada through the 2008 financial collapse and helped the United Kingdom navigate the turbulence of Brexit. Today, he is shaping a strategy that transforms Trump's policies into opportunities for Canada. While the American president fires off tweets, Carney builds alliances. While Washington politicians bicker, Ottawa delivers results. The numbers tell the story. In the 90 days following Trump's escalation of tariffs, Canada secured more than $47 billion in new trade agreements. Japan signed multi-year contracts for Canadian energy. South Korea struck deals to source Canadian nickel for electric vehicle batteries. The European Union finalized a pact for critical minerals that deliberately bypassed American suppliers. Each agreement represents more than revenue. Together they reveal a coordinated effort to step into every market space the United States has abandoned or destabilized. This is not random chance. It is the outcome of careful planning. Carney and Canadian diplomats recognized early that global trust in the United States was eroding. When Trump first threatened sweeping tariffs back in March, Carney was not waiting for the yay fallout. He was already flying to Tokyo and Seoul, preparing the groundwork for new partnerships. While US trade representatives burned through alliances with hostile negotiations, Canadian officials worked in silence, positioning their nation as the stable and reliable alternative. The approach was straightforward but devastatingly effective. Present Canada as the partner that honors contracts, delivers on promises, and insulates trade from political volatility. At a time when American policy appeared dictated by social media outbursts, Canada projected consistency and trustworthiness. The effect was immediate. Billions in trade shifted, long-standing allies looked north, and Canadian industries gained access to opportunities the United States once considered guaranteed. The broader lesson lies in the nature of global economics today. Trade wars do not function as closed battles with winners and losers standing in isolation. In an interconnected world, barriers erected by one country become gateways for another. When the United States raised walls, Canada walked through the open doors. Carney had seen the pattern before during financial crises and political upheavals in Europe. This time, he applied the same insight on a scale that altered the balance of power across continents. Step by step, Canada has maneuvered into a position where its influence rivals that of its southern neighbor. The transformation did not happen with loud declarations or sweeping speeches. It unfolded quietly, through contracts signed in boardrooms, through shipments redirected from American ports to Canadian ones, through the steady redrawing of supply chains. Allies who once depended on Washington now see in Ottawa a partner that can offer stability and growth. For American families, the consequences are more than headlines. They are felt in the grocery aisles where tomatoes cost more, in the soda aisle where aluminum cans may vanish, in the broader economy where jobs tied to agriculture and manufacturing slip away. Each price increase is a symptom of a deeper shift, a reordering of power in which the United States pays more and gains less, while Canada builds wealth and secures influence for decades ahead. At the center of this story is a simple but profound reality. The United States tried to weaponize tariffs, expecting submission from its partners and revival at home. Instead, it exposed its own vulnerabilities. And in that moment, Canada, guided by one of the sharpest financial minds of this generation, seized the chance to redefine its role on the world stage. Mark Carney understood something that Trump never grasped. In a global economy, isolation weakens and cooperation strengthens. By moving decisively, Canada replaced the United States in markets where trust collapsed. Every deal signed, every shipment redirected, and every contract honored reinforced the perception that Canada, not America, is the dependable choice. The scoreboard speaks for itself. Billions gained, influence expanded, and allies turning north for leadership. In the pursuit of dominance, Trump's tariffs did not punish rivals. They handed Canada the very advantage America sought to protect. And the man orchestrating this reversal, the strategist and banker at the heart of it all, remains the most dangerous figure Trump never saw coming. Prime Minister Mark Carney. Let's talk about tomatoes for a second, because this story is far bigger than anyone realizes. American farmers are struggling with unpredictable weather, shrinking workforces, and equipment that belongs to another era, while across the northern border, Canada has built an agricultural machine that looks more like the future than farming. In massive greenhouses powered by cutting-edge technology, tomatoes grow year-round under controlled conditions, guided by precision nutrition and flawless climate management. The result is produce that leaves Toronto looking identical to the shipments that arrive in Tokyo, with no variation in appearance or taste. Buyers are hooked. A Japanese grocery executive even admitted that Canadian tomatoes arrive with a consistency American suppliers can no longer provide. Same quality, same packaging, same reliability. With US farms, he said, it feels like rolling the dice. This is where Trump's trade war stops looking like a short-term policy decision and starts resembling a catastrophe. Tomatoes are only the beginning. Aluminum, lumber, and agricultural staples have all been caught in the same spiral. And economists warn that the fallout is supply chain chaos on a scale America has not seen in generations. Even Walmart's own CEO, Doug McMillon, confessed during an investor call that tariffs are creating week-to-week increases in costs. His translation couldn't have been clearer. American families are walking into stores where groceries, drinks, and household items are steadily becoming more expensive. Tariffs that were marketed as a tool to make America great again are making the country more costly to live in. Meanwhile, Canadian businesses are seizing opportunities they once could not have imagined. Contracts with Europe and Asia that were previously out of reach are now being locked in for years to come. Where American suppliers once dominated, Canadian companies are filling the vacuum, offering prices and reliability that global buyers now trust. The underlying principle is simple. International trade depends on trust. When buyers in Seoul or Stockholm commit to orders worth millions of dollars, they are not gambling on unpredictable policies or last-minute rule changes dictated by late-night politics. They want stability. Canada, in this moment, offers something the United States cannot: predictability. Mark Carney, who has spent decades building credibility with central bankers, trade ministers, and business leaders across the globe, has turned this into a national advantage. When Carney calls and promises that Canada can deliver what a buyer needs, they believe him. When Trump calls and threatens tariffs unless his demands are met, phones click silent and orders shift north. It is not charisma that wins these deals, but the quiet assurance that contracts will be honored without disruption. What the world is witnessing goes beyond a trade dispute. It is a reordering of power in the global economy. For 3/4 of a century, the United States carried the reputation of being the anchor of international commerce. Washington was considered the safe bet, the reliable partner, the country around which others built their economic futures. But tariff after tariff has burned that image to the ground. Each one sends the same message. America changes the rules whenever it wishes, America cannot be trusted, and America no longer honors the stability it once guaranteed. Other nations are not ignoring the signals. They are responding with decisive moves. Japan recently signed over $4 billion in Canadian nickel contracts. The European Union pushed through a $12 billion trade deal with Ottawa in the span of a single week. Mexico, long tied to American supply chains, has begun diverting segments of its production toward Canada instead. This is the reversal few expected. The United States is teaching the world how to live without it. The pattern started with aluminum, spread to tomatoes, and touched lumber, canola oil, and essential manufacturing components. But now it is branching into areas Trump never anticipated, such as technology partnerships, green energy projects. Stay with us, subscribe, and follow along as we continue breaking down the forces that are reshaping the global stage.